Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Freedom Radio Hour. I'm your host, DJ Adam Cruz, and I have my fantastic co-host here,
Eddie Nicholas. What up, beautiful people? Welcome to 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan. Boom, 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 boom. Mr. Cruz, what is going on in the world of music and whatever else we got to talk about today?
Well, I think I'm trying to befuddle you and befoggle you all in one episode.
B&B.
Yes, we're going to let our listeners and our viewers know that the Freedom Radio Hour is here, not only giving you fantastic music, but we're also here to provide you with music business news and trends from around the globe. All right, so the first order of business is these songs from yesteryear have made their way to today. All right, so if we recall in previous episodes, we were talking about that Happy Birthday song, right? And how they finally were able to get it to become public domain. For those that don't know, every song you put out there, once you put it on pen to paper, record it, perform it somewhere, it's already a copyrighted material, right? You can go to the Copyright Office, register the work, and that affords you a benefit of registration. But it is not required, as we know, because once you put pen to paper, it's a fixed medium, in which case it's copyrighted, all right? But you do, in the case of major songs like the Happy Birthday song, you, if you were the author, were to provide a copyright or sign a copyright or register your copyright, all right? So nowadays, what happened was these songs that were from back in the day, pre-1972, they're coming back into the spotlight. Mostly because some people want to use the song and make money from it, and they're having some trouble. So when a Happy Birthday song came out, there was a documentary around the song and providing some history. And when the documentarian tried to reach out to the publisher, he wasn't able to utilize the song. There was a lot of money to clear it, for example. So it got him thinking about, why is the song like Happy Birthday even copyrighted to begin with? It should be considered public domain. That's the time when the song becomes available for anyone to use. There's some songs throughout history that are considered public domain, and now we know that Happy Birthday is one of those songs. Well, today, there's another one that's in the courts. They're hoping on the back of this Happy Birthday case, they're hoping that the song We Shall Overcome, remember, We Shall Overcome. Yeah, so they're hoping that song will come out and become a public domain song as well, because they're citing its historical significance. They're citing the protest feeling around it, and that was such an iconic song that it should be considered public domain. So here's the rub of the story. The rub is this. There's a foundation, the We Shall Overcome Foundation. It's headed up by a gentleman by the name of Mr. Isaiah Gamboa. Mr. Gamboa wrote a book about the song, providing history, and also worked on a documentary around the song. But when he hit up the music publishers, Ludlow Music, they prevented him from using the song in the documentary, which he wasn't expecting, and it took him by surprise. So when he did the research, he too, like in the Happy Birthday case, couldn't figure out why a song like We Shall Overcome would be copyrighted today.
But they would have allowed him to use it had he paid the requested fee.
Well, here's the thing. In the Happy Birthday case, it was simply paying a high premium, so like $5,000 or more to use the song in a documentary, in that scenario, right? But in the other scenario, the music publisher, Ludlow Music, was trying to prevent Mr. Gamboa from using the song. That's different than not wanting to pay the high price.
Okay.
They were simply like, no, because if you have a copyrighted material and someone wants to license a song you wrote, like This Must Be Love, or a song that you own the copyright to, you could elect to say no thank you, in which case they can't use it. So that was the case that the We Shall Overcome Foundation dealt with. And so they now have filed a lawsuit in federal court to try to change that song from a copyrighted work because they feel it was always a derivative work, in which case the copyright would only be towards an arrangement or a certain version of the song, not the original melody nor the lyrics. That should be public domain, is what this foundation is arguing. So check it out. So the people behind the song, Ludlow Music, they responded in kind to Mr. Gamboa and say, well, listen, we do have proceeds of the song that go to a foundation. It's just not going to the We Shall Overcome Foundation. They have opted to provide some of the proceeds to a Highland folk school in Tennessee because that school was of historical significance in terms of the history of that song. Evidently, this particular area, there was protest and became sort of an anthem before the Pete Seeger version that we know today. You know, Pete Seeger kind of popularized it for the protest movement, if you will. It was like a folk song, you know. But before that, this folk school was part of the history of the song, so they opted to give proceeds to them. So they're basically saying, by making this a public domain, you are disrespecting the artist that wrote the song. So let me ask you, Mr. Nicholas. Let's say this is a song you wrote, Shake, for example, and somebody 50 years on, maybe not you because you might not be with us on Earth. Maybe it be a member of your family or offspring. They want to change that song and make it public domain so that anybody can use it, and your children or your family members don't receive benefit from that. Do you think that's fair? Now let's be clear. Shake has become so popular that it's a folk song. It's part of a neo-civil rights movement, let's say. Maybe the Bernie Sanders, took up Shake, and that's his song for the campaign. What do you think?
Well, and would you put it in that scenario right there, then of course I would be a little bit muffed and befuddled. But when I think about, muffed and befuddled.
Muffed and befuddled.
Now, when I think about the We Shall Overcome song, because I come from, an era where that song was a song of protest and was a song of not only protest, but of a song of hope.
Right.
For so long, personally, I always thought it was open to domain. And I say that because it's one of the songs in the hymnal, the Bible hymnal. So therefore, with it being in the Bible hymnal, I'm always looking at, okay, well, somebody took a song out of the gospel hymnal and updated it, which is exactly what they did, because it's clearly stated that song was written. So technically, none of them should own it.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk about another song, Louie Louie, one of the famous rock songs. And
Louie Louie. Louie. See, I don't even know the words, but I know about the song. We'll be back, right back. 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan. Boom, 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 boom.
Freedom Radio Hour, y'all.
Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
What up, beautiful people, and welcome back. My name is Eddie Nicholas, and we're so glad that you joined us here on 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan. I'm here sitting with my co-host, the wonderful, fantastic, talkative, knowledgeable Mr.
Adam Cruz. We're live and direct right here on the Freedom Radio Hour. We're your number one source for music, business news, and trends from around the globe. Before we broke, we were talking about songs that are arguing whether they should become public domain or not. In short, public domain means you don't have to pay anyone for use of that
Anybody
song
can use
anymore,
it.
right? Songs like a Happy Birthday have become public domain, and now we learn that a protest song, We Shall Overcome, is in the midst of being argued in court over this very argument. But we also have a report given by our own Mr. Eddie Nicholas about another song that was popularized by the Kingsmen. Now remember, there was another rock group that popularized the song.
Revere and the Raiders.
Yes, Louie Louie.
Dum bum. Oh, how bum bum.
I need Beatles hair or something. I should have had a Beatles wig, right?
The Beatles, I would have dressed like Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Well, talk to us about this song.
Well, anyway, that song that was written, I believe, in the 50s by Richard Berry. In accordance with that song, back in the day, people used to sign shiesty copyrights, or they used to sell over their copyrights. In this instance, Mr. Berry sold the rights to that song to the record label. I can't think of the record label right now, but
how much did he sell it for?
$750.
Oh my God! I feel like a dagger to my heart.
Because he was getting married and needed the money for that and other personal things.
And it was the 50s.
And it was the 50s. And as many of you know, we hear a lot of horror stories from our greats, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, all of those people that were instrumental in establishing the rock and roll sound. Well, anyway.
Well, they signed bad deals is what your point is, right?
Yes, they signed bad deals. Well, anyway, a gentleman recently, as with the We Shall Overcome, decided that he wanted to use that song, Louie Louie, for a commercial. In him doing the research, he found that he had to personally as opposed to going through a mechanical license.
System, yeah.
He had to personally contact Mr. Berry to get permission to use the song. In contacting Mr. Berry, of course, he finds out that the song had gone through a whole bunch of litigation, but most importantly, he found out that Mr. Berry was not earning any monies from any royalties.
You
from
better
it.
pay me my royalties.
But even though Miss Rihanna, you better have my money. Is that what she says? What is it? Is that what she says, Miss Rihanna? Well, I can't say the other part because you know.
She better have my money.
You better have my money. Well, anyway, this gentleman went back, spoke with Mr. Berry, and to get to the point, Mr. Berry ended up being able to reclaim all of his rights to that song. Again, we talked about the similarity with the YMCA song Victor Willis.
Yes.
He did the same thing. He went back and he reclaimed his copyrights.
Right.
And through reclaiming his copyrights, they were also able to reclaim all of that back money. So Mr. Berry ended up with almost $15 million when he went back to claim
But that's
back
really
his money.
interesting because there's a few things here. First, it sounds like there was another person, a documentarian or whoever, that was the one who let Mr. Barry know that he had this chance to get the money.
It wasn't even a documentarian. I know he wanted. I think he wanted to use it for a television commercial or something. He wanted to use it for some type of advertising.
Wow, isn't that something?
And in doing that, he found out in the fine print that he had to go and speak directly.
I wonder if
Mr.
Barry felt inclined to hit up that gentleman with a little coin
Ah!
since he got $15 million from this.
Well, I think he ended up letting them use the song, so I'm quite sure they got what they needed.
Right. One hand washes the other. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But Mr. Berry was able to reclaim his copyright.
And that's interesting when you bring it back to the YMCA case, because in that case, Mr. Willis not only had to reclaim copyright that he sold off years earlier, but he also had to fight to remove a gentleman's name
on certain arrangements, not
yes.
everything, but certain arrangements.
Well, certainly the French version, because I understand this gentleman Bololo, or I know I'm butchering his last name, but this Frenchman evidently had rights to the other versions. Of YMCA's catalog, especially YMCA itself and other Village People tunes. So it's really interesting that you have to do a few steps. You can't just reclaim your copyright. You also have to reclaim the copyright and then evidently fight to remove others that are not entitled to those royalties. That's a great story. I think it's time for another break. When we come back, I want to break down. There's so much bad news about streaming music, but for once, I want to try to figure out, can we get to the math about what will actually work for artists to start to make a livable wage? We have to make some assumptions, but we're going to do a quick little maths lesson here on our ways back, and we'll figure out if there's a way in which our artists can get closer to a livable wage. Where?
91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan. Boom, 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 boom.
Freedom Radio Hour, y'all.
Freedom Radio.
Freedom Radio Hour.
And we're back live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan. You're deep in the zone right now at the Freedom Radio Hour. We're your number one source for music, business news, and trends from around the globe. I'm Adam Cruz, and I have my fantastic
Eddie
co-host
Nicholas,
here.
What up, beautiful people? We're so glad that you choose to join us here on 91.6 FM.
All right, we're about to break down a quick math lesson for y'all. So, let's pretend we form a band. There's a few members. Maybe it's just you and I, okay? In today's world, if you have physical products, say a CD, right? And let's say real generous, you make your debut album and you come out and you sell 10,000 units. I know this sounds crazy because you think, wow, I sold 10,000 units. But let's say you sold these 10,000 units as you toured around. You're a band, right? You and I form a band. All right, so you have your 10,000 units. Let's say you sell it at $10 a pop. We're talking about $100,000 gross revenue so far, right? These websites like an iTunes or an Amazon, they take anywhere between 20 to 30% of your income. Anyway, so let's just say they take 30% of that $100,000. That leaves you with $70,000. Okay, so $70,000, you split it with the label, because let's say you have a 50-50 deal. Just suspend belief here. I'm trying to get to a point. So at that point, you're $35,000 each. Right? So you think, okay, $35,000, that's what we have, and you and I split that $35K. You know, the tax man's going to come for you. It doesn't include promotional costs and other costs to make
Have to come out of that.
Yeah, that have to come out of that because you did tour and such. But even at that level, if we're splitting, say, $34,000, you're talking about what? That's like 16 a piece, 16, 17 a piece, something like that. So you'd start to think, okay, well, maybe this is a way in which we can make a little income, because 16 a piece for my debut LP is not too bad for our band that we put together, right? Now, here's the real rub of why the problem exists with streaming music. So when we apply the same kind of math, the problem is that if you take that 100,000 copies, right? Excuse me, 10,000 units that we said you were sold.
So that now turns to 10,000 streams.
Right.
Okay.
So when you take that 10,000 streams and you multiply it by the 0.0 point whatever, now you're talking, after all the splits, like I broke it down for you on the physical side, on the digital stream side, you're really only looking at about $7,500 to split. So you figure 16, 17 versus like $7,500 bucks. So the livable wage, how does this work? Some artists are saying that there's a few things that are working. There seems to be this like offline touring, selling the product first, and then doing a digital, say, windowing later. So in other words, our band, we tour, and you can only buy the product at our events, right? At our touring event. And then after a spell, we strategize on when that time frame is. We then release the product digitally. Okay. They're saying that at that point, since you're only breaking off that 7,500, at least you've made the bulk of what you're going to make from the physical product. From the tour. Yeah. So they're saying the way in which you could start to make income is to reinvest on the physical side. So in our world, that's a little bit troubling because we're not a band, right? We're house music artists by and large. So we do what's called track dates. We're not necessarily always backed to buy a live band, for example.
Because they cost.
Because they cost a lot of money. And the music that we produce by and large is electronically based, meaning that it's done in a studio and it's not always live instrumentation required. It could be just a beat or whatever. But I do find it very interesting that one thing that we seem to be missing in this whole situation, because we could talk to our ears are red and our faces blue about how terrible the deal is for streaming music as compared to artists. But I do think that there is opportunity here, namely, and finally coming up with a strategy. I don't think we do this enough in house music, where we have a physical plan for the music and a digital plan for the music. Very simply this, I'm suggesting we have a strategy, and we started strategy where we have a physical plan and a digital plan. What does the physical mean to you? Maybe you can't afford CDs, right? Or maybe you could afford t-shirts and not the music. Something so that you have physical product that you can sell and get money in hand to pay for that, and not only to pay for it, to sell out so that you could reinvest back in and make more. Like in the case of vinyl, it costs a lot initially to get to market. You have the stamper, mastering, label, all of that costs money. But after the first run and you sell through, let's say, if you want to repress that vinyl, you're not incurring the same level of cost anymore because the stamper's already done, the mastering job's already done, so you don't have to incur it again.
You're just paying for the number of copies that you need.
All the more reason to develop a strategy that discusses these very things. Hey, Eddie, what are some of the low-cost things that don't cost a lot? You can get, okay, I know I could do a digital release. That don't cost that much, but I want to do a physical. So then what I'm saying here today, folks, let's talk about a strategy for house music. I don't think we talk about it enough. Giving yourself enough of a leeway to have this windowing effect take place. Have your physical product at the ready for these interviews, for your new release, for any appearances, and push to sell through. Why? Because that's the most money you're going to see as compared to the digital scenario that we've laid out.
And he used the operative word, the operative couple of words. The most money you are going to see physically in your hand is when you have that product, when you can take that product and put it in the person's hands. You know, case in point, I just did CD release party for Miss Melba Moore.
Talk about
her new LP, Forevermore. It was very interesting because, again, she was there. She was actually there. And, and an artist of her caliber, why is Melba Moore out here doing dates like that when Melba Moore is already a recognized, iconic, legendary performer? Well,
she too has to adapt to the climate that is music today, right?
And you have to get out there. You have to get out there. People have to see you. People want to see you sign that CD. Her CD, she was selling her CDs for $10 a pop. But that's money that will go toward the pockets of what she needs to do for Melba Moore right then and there. She doesn't have to wait to get that money. And as you say, you establish and you do a couple of tour dates. Me personally, we're talking about my CD. release, we've already talked about, and you've already given me incentives for like to invest in like CD Baby. I know that's more than one, but you know, places like that where you invest a couple of $100 for X amount of CDs for you to have when you were sitting there. I saw that Dawn Tallman just recently did that for her For Me release party. People want that physical product. Now, whether or not they have the initial CD player or whatever it is to stick it in, that's another story. But you want to make sure that you, as an artist, you can put that physical product into
and also think
someone's
broader,
hand.
Think broader, because physical doesn't always mean CD or record. It could mean merchandise or stickers or anything that you could
anything that your
audience
fan can walk away with.
Thank you. That's the opposite word. What your fan would buy into, right? That's all the time we have today. You've been tuned into the Freedom Radio Hour. We're your #1 source for music, business news, and trends from around the globe. Check out freedomradiohour.com. We have articles posted about all that we're discussing today and in previous episodes, and of course, comments under everything that we're posting, because we want to hear from you. We want to know what you think about the We Shall Overcome case. What do you think about artists getting closer to a livable wage through these offline and online strategies? What do you think about all that? Let us know at freedomradiohour.com. Of course, check out EddieNicholas.com. One Time is his current single, and we are preparing and finalizing his Do You Want to Dance LP coming out in September.
Yes.
More details about that in coming episodes. And of course, check out DJAdamCruz.com for more of this fantastic music. See you next time. Have a great weekend and a great week ahead. Peace.
Peace out. 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan. Oh, it's Sudan. See? Heartbeat of Sudan. 91.6, the Heartbeat of Sudan. Boom, 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 boom. Peace out, people.